Hi, I'm Peter Reinhardt, and welcome to the Johnson & Wales International Symposium on Bread. I'm coming to you from the Hance Auditorium in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we've held the last 4 bread symposiums, and as you can see, there's nobody here but me. And this is where we usually have it. The seats are all empty because this year, thanks to you, the symposium will be presented online, virtually, in our new presentation hall, which is where I will join you in just a minute. Thank you, and thanks for being part of our new virtual Johnson & Wales International Symposium on Bread, presented by Puratos. Welcome again. Throughout the entire symposium, I'll be thanking our generous sponsors over and over again, and ask that you do as well by visiting their booths and pavilions in the exhibitor hall. There you will see lots of bonus content, and you can also make appointments to meet with the folks from these companies that serve our baking community so well. Our presenting sponsor is Puratos, who has partnered with us from the very beginning for all of our symposiums, and it is their support that helped us get this one-of-a-kind gathering of thought leaders off the ground. Please also visit our fabulous flour and milling sponsors, Ardent Mills, Lindley Mills, and Central Milling. Thank you also to our equipment sponsors, the WP Bakery Group and Allied Bakery and Food Service Equipment. And thank you also to our specialty food product companies, Probiotine, Fire Within, Big Green Egg, and Mock Mill. Please check out all of their booths to learn about their wonderful and unique products. And also thanks to our media sponsors, Cook's Country, The Local Palate, the James Beard Foundation, and the Bread Bakers Guild of America. You'll be hearing more about all of them throughout the entire series of presentations. So again, thank you to all our sponsors. At the end of today's presentation, you will also see our credit scroll thanking all of the people behind the scenes who made this event possible, including our production and technical partner, Ganoid Communications, our creative team at Gumbo Marketing, and the many folks at Johnson & Wales University, our hosts for this, our 4th annual gathering. So stick around if you will. But now it's time to get things rolling with today's presentation, so let's go live. And once again, welcome to the Johnson & Wales International Symposium on Bread, presented by Puratos. Well, welcome. We're live again, and I'm cracking up because I was looking at that pre-recorded welcome, which we made about 6 months ago. And now I'm sitting here live and I'm looking at the clutter behind me, and it hasn't changed. My office is, I thought by the time we got to the end of the symposium, I'd have this place organized and looking a little spiffier, but there's not much difference in the chaos behind me. So that's a little bit of my time capsule, but welcome to all of you, because today is our kind of penultimate gathering. Next week is our final gathering of this year's symposium, when we'll be welcoming Dave Dahl the founder of Dave's Killer Breads, will be with us for a lengthy conversation about his whole story. But this week, we're going to be doing a little trash talking this week. It's all about trash talk. We've got Josh Allen, the founder and CEO of Companion Baking in St. Louis. He's going to join us in just a second. We've got not a whole lot of old business other than to tell you that we'll be back again next Monday. No Wednesday presentations this week. We've finished all those demos. We are still gathering and trying to collect some of the missing recipes that we promised, that presenters promised to provide for us. So I'm tracking them down, and we'll try to get them into the folder. And our folders will be in the, for those of you who have tickets, our site will be available to you even after the symposium ends. Through the end of this year, all of the archives will be, the presentations will be available for watching. But I believe we're going to be able to keep the site alive for another year for those of you who want to get into the archive folders. So all of that's still to come, and I'll explain it all next week, and I'll send out a letter to everybody kind of wrapping things up. But I do want to dive into today's talk with Josh, because he made a great video for us, which we're going to play for you in just a second. And what we'd like you to do is, while you're watching the video, write down your questions. You can put them through the Q&A or the chat. And when we come back live after the video in about 25 minutes, Josh and I will pick it up from where the video's left off, and we'll take your questions and we'll get a little conversation going. So please join us now for this great presentation from Josh Allen on, well, we call it Trash Talk. Here it is. Gita, you can go ahead and play it.
In 2017, 24 years into the business and 2 years after opening my dream bakery, I almost ran out of cash. Everything I thought would get better in a new facility, margins, morale, customer service, sanitation practices, got worse. We were certainly naive with what we were jumping into, and we truly failed to anticipate all of the challenges. Now some of you may be looking to grow. And as exciting as that prospect may be, I'm here to remind you today that scaling up in the bakery business is hard. More bakers, new and possibly different equipment, FSMA, inventory management, logistics, distribution, lots of things tend to change when you grow. Dan Leader from Bread Alone, certainly one of my heroes in the industry, spoke eloquently in early August at his symposium presentation about just how hard it can be. In 2015, after 22 years baking in the same location in which we had grown in fits and spurts from a tiny 1,000 square foot storefront to a still cramped and disorganized 15,000 square foot bakehouse, we finally made the leap into a new facility a little larger than 40,000 square feet. It felt a lot like graduating from high school and heading off to the big state university. What I'd like to talk with you about today is how we survived. How we regained control and turned everything around by looking in the unlikeliest of places, the trash bin. Everything, and I mean everything, how we make bread, how we manage ourselves and each other changed when we started thinking about the trash. Everything about your business will change when you measure and manage the trash. Right away, your thoughts, your attention, I hope, just went to the dumpster at your facility, and you're asking yourself, gosh, just how much trash are we creating? What can change inside of your business if you started thinking about the waste that you're creating and what you could do to minimize it? I'm Josh Allen. I'm the owner and baker at Companion Baking in St. Louis, Missouri. We're a 28-year-old bread manufacturer that produces a wide variety of breads, buns, rolls, sandwich breads, and a few sweet goods. We sell half of what we make at home, a roughly 100-mile radius around St. Louis, and the other half abroad, west to the Rocky Mountains and east to the Appalachians. We've mixed and baked nearly 100 million pounds of bread since I pulled the first baguettes from my small Pavier oven in 1993. Now, I don't have a million hits on YouTube or a New York Times best-selling cookbook or even any features on Eater. I think Peter asked me to join the symposium and speak with you all today because I'm just like many of you. I show up every day and I try to be nice, try to be generous with my experiences, support others in the industry, set an example for my 5 kids. So today, I and a handful of companion leaders and bakers will walk you through this trash journey that began for us when we moved into our new facility. Before I get too far though, let me acknowledge that the past 18 months have been the most challenging I've faced in all my years in business. Navigating the COVID pandemic has really rocked our world. Having to lay off 40% of our staff last spring was brutal, and trying to rebuild that staff this year has been even harder. The anxiety and uncertainty of governmental assistance has led to many sleepless nights, and the unprecedented revenue declines, even amidst years of consistent growth, has been really difficult and unimaginable. Through it all, the trash initiative that we already had in place became our anchor. Measuring and managing the trash was really the only positive news that we had to share with our staff on a regular basis. Early in the pandemic, we brought everybody together daily to talk about just what the hell was going on and what we planned to do about it. Later, as things progressed, we moved those conversations to weekly and then to monthly. But we still relied on the trash talk as that anchor point in which we could make sure that everybody was moving in the right direction. Let's just focus on what we can control. Let's just focus on what we can succeed with. Let's find ways to reduce waste, and let's find ways to be better. The changes we put in effect in 2017 were a huge momentum shift for us. Your journey might begin when you make the leap from a home cottage bakery to a brick and mortar storefront, or open a second or a third retail location, or add a wholesale customer and increase your daily bake from 100 pounds to 1,000 pounds daily. Growing your business can create a lot of unforeseen problems. And don't get me wrong, opportunities. But a lot of times the scaling up process is surprisingly difficult. Before we moved into our new factory, we had mixed and baked a number of test doughs and products. But we quickly realized, once you're running with full-size batches and nonstop production, that what you learn in testing doesn't always translate. We screwed up a lot of bread. We had to learn a whole new production rhythm and the cadence of a new bakery. Ambient temperatures were certainly more comfortable because we had invested in climatic controls for the shop floor, but they were different. Fermentation times changed significantly. Oven spacing and bake were different. Those of you who juggle production scheduling know that changing one variable can wreak havoc. We changed almost every variable. It was incredibly hard on our companions.
We just weren't ready for it. And long story short, and it was really stressful for teams, for supervisors, and just for people. So we weren't having a lot of the conversations that we needed to have. And sometimes, you know, like you just got to slow down and have that conversation in the moment. And it can be as simple as like, are you okay? And, you know, what can I do? Just breathe, and it's bread. We're not having an open heart transplant here. We're making bread.
We are semi-automated. We use machines in nearly every process, from mixing to makeup to baking to packaging. But we don't employ any mechanization to move from one process to the next. We roll dough on wheels, we hand dump into dividers, we load nearly every pan or board by hand, and we manipulate everything in advance of packaging. Now, why did I tell you all that? You know what it's like to bake a lot of bread. Well, I just want to reiterate that there are a tremendous number of opportunities to screw things up and to generate a lot of trash, especially if you're focused on other things, and especially if you're overwhelmed by the process of scaling up. Putting your head down and banging it out isn't always the answer. We were working incredibly hard, but not particularly smart. It all led to overflowing dumpsters. When we moved into our new factory, we contracted with a waste management company that installed the compactor and charged us per pickup and per pound. They took the compactor off-site to empty it and weighed it at their facility. Each month, we got a bill with the number of tons dumped and the number of pickups. I didn't have any comparative basis on which to judge those numbers. For 22 years, we had simply written a monthly check to our landlord for our shared portion of the trash in the building in which we were leasing space to. I hadn't thought about trash for a minute in the old shop. We had built our original business in a bakery that was always slightly too small, too hot, a little under-equipped. We had learned valuable lessons in frugality in that old shop, and we had built a strong team around the bench. We also daydreamed about what our new bakery would look like if we ever had a chance to build from scratch. To finance our new bakery, we had worked with our bank and the SBA. From the beginning, they had been looking over our shoulder. It just started simply with quarterly reporting, and then maybe a little bit of concern. I started to realize pretty quickly, though, what was at stake here. My business, the livelihood of our 100+ companions, the validity of who I was and who I had been for the last 20 years. There were a lot of sleepless nights. I had to learn to balance a sense of urgency with a demeanor of confidence and calmness for my team. Some of you have been there. Some of you, in light of the pandemic, might be there right now. 2 years in, and the bank's concern turned up a notch. They wanted to have a sit down to understand how I plan to get out of this mess. And it certainly goes without saying that sit downs with the bank certainly aren't fun. On the phone before the meeting, they had laid it out for me pretty simply. We weren't hitting the metrics that we had agreed to and that were outlined in the super tiny small print of the loan documents we had signed with them and with the SBA. In preparation for the meeting, I gathered a ton of data, and I decided to chart the trash information that the waste management company had been sending to me since we opened the new factory. I was astounded by the numbers. We were trending at 1.6 million pounds of trash. What I shared with the bank that day was simply the embarrassment that I felt about that number and what we planned to do about it. We would fix the financial problems that we were in by focusing solely on the trash. Less was going to become more. We would attack every metric by eliminating waste. And you know what? As crazy as it sounded, the trash, really? The bank said okay. They gave me a little bit of rope and told me to get to work. Honestly, I was super grateful they accepted the idea because I didn't think we had the bandwidth to do much more than focus on that one thing. We were still struggling with managing the evolving production and dealing with the labor challenges that were an outgrowth of the poor management. We really needed to rally the team. We needed a number that couldn't be manipulated. After all, the trash company sent me the monthly pounds report. We wanted something that had low-hanging fruit and something that could generate quick wins and lots of momentum. Something with an easily definable metric. After all, we're just going to throw away less stuff every month. And, most importantly, something that would impact every baker. We all took out the trash. I strongly believe that fixing the trash problem would right the ship.
By looking at that trash number, it really told a story, right? And the story wasn't just about trash. It was telling this whole story about ingredient cost and flow to the bottom line. And it was telling a story about culture, and it was telling a story about connection, and it was telling all these different pieces. And folks were like super disappointed in job satisfaction when dough was going in the trash. And when we slow down and can figure out how we can do a better job and make better bread and not have things go in the trash, it all comes together.
Look, I understand that measuring and managing metrics are difficult and take a lot of energy to communicate effectively. As my grandfather always told me, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. But the bank looking over your shoulder certainly changes the urgency inside of your organization. After the meeting, they asked for a weekly cash flow report that told them not only where every dollar of cash came in and left the organization, but the forecast for said cash for the next 13 weeks. Every Sunday night, I put the kids to bed, plotted the weekly cash, and built the moving forecast. It was, to say the least, after 25 years in business, incredibly humbling. Enduring the additional scrutiny that comes with underperformance is tough. But week by week, trash bill by trash bill, we fundamentally changed everything that we did. And then everything changed about our business. It's crazy. When you think about the trash, what's going out, everything will change about your business.
I think the most that has changed is the mentality that not only the managers have, but also the bakers have about what we do, how we discard things, where we have waste, and the ability to approach a manager and say, I have an idea, what can we do to start implementing it? Then I think the way that you see people change how they're coming into work is they feel disappointed when they throw something away or make mistakes. And you can see it, they approach you and they say, I'm so sorry, here's where I made this mistake, here's where I made this error. And it caused trash. The fact that they're thinking about it and they're saying it caused us to discard something, and you can see a genuine feeling across the board from everybody that that matters a lot to them.
So where do you start? Well, first you have to know where you are. You have to find a way to measure the trash. It could be as simple as your monthly bill. We certainly got lucky with that. It might be a clipboard by the dumpster on which the baker makes a tick mark every time they take out the trash. Or you could take a photo of your 3-yard receptacle and estimate weekly or daily volume. You have to come up with a basis in order to start your change. For us, we had our starting point. It was 1.6 million pounds of trash. From there, we took it back to grade school and the simple idea of reduce, reuse, or recycle. We challenged every baker to think about everything they did from one of those 3 aspects. Focusing on the trash had a financial, emotional, and environmental impact on everything. Here's a few of the things we did. All of them are essentially micro innovations that incrementally added up to lots and lots of trash. Relative to reducing, we talked about slowing things down in order to speed things up. We instituted a supervisor check at the end of every mix. We certainly had always tracked time and temperature and put those little sheets in a folder and had something to reference if something went wrong. But we had never required a supervisor to physically check a mix at the bowl. That change dramatically improved mixing quality and consistency, which led to a lot less bottlenecks in fermentation, which led to a lot less out-of-spec product, which led to lots and lots less trash.
We just started making different choices about like how we ran production. And that repeatable routine was, like after every dough that we ran, the supervisor came and checked the dough, checked the quality of the dough, checked the temperature of the dough, did a window pane test, and those things were really important. And then once you checked that dough and you signed off on it, we started having less dough go in the trash.
So every dough is getting checked by the mixer and also by the supervisors, the management is on duty. If we have any issues, we can easily figure out, when to stop. So I let people know, I make them aware, hey, if you do it this way, we're gonna get better results.
In terms of reusing, a big one for us has been our Rion makeup lines. We run well-hydrated doughs that use a fair bit of flour dust in makeup to keep everything from sticking. Those lines run 16 plus hours a day, so the catch trays that grab the excess flour are simply dumped throughout the day by various bakers working various shifts. No one really paid any attention to how much excess flour this represented.
Kind of like one of those Zen moments is we figured out that we could reclaim a lot of flour. So our process is where we use a lot of flour to help dust the dough as it's going through our machines because we have high hydration doughs, lots of water in it. But at the same time, the flour doesn't just fit right on top of the dough. It kind of goes everywhere after a while. And one of the things that we've seen throughout other equipment was this reclaim or repurpose of flour, but we didn't have that capability with our equipment. So we found a sieve, and we started off just taking a tammy, a French sieve, and shaking all the flour out that was in these catch trays. And we collected about 50 pounds of it. And it was like, whoa, that's a bag of flour. And then after that, we're like, okay, well, this is onerous. This is not something fun that the bakers are gonna wanna sit there and kind of shake around and jostle around when they could be doing other things. So what's out there? And we found a machine that just shakes, It's not meant for reclaiming flour, but it's meant for like the chemical industry or pharmaceutical industry. Well, we bought one and we put it in, and it was a pretty cheap and economical piece of equipment.
My first day getting this device onto the line to be able to work with, quickly take care of it within minutes, flow right back to running the machine. Yeah, I thought, hey, if this machine actually works the way they're telling me it's gonna work, this is gonna save so many, like thousands of pounds of flour throughout the course of the year. Like truckload is what I heard, like an actual like delivery truck's size worth of flour would be what we were throwing out every year. That's unacceptable on like multiple levels, both for your business, as far as environmental impact goes.
When Brendan mentions a truckload, he means it. We realized we were tossing 175 pounds a day, 6 days a week, nearly 55,000 pounds of flour per year. With all of the chaos of moving into our new facility and doing our best to scale up, we really dropped the ball out of the gate on any kind of recycling program. The trash initiative immediately changed that focus. We quickly found a partner for paper and corrugated recycling, and we've built that program to redirect nearly 5,000 pounds monthly. And after a lot of effort, we found a composting partner that helps us compost nearly 25,000 pounds a month. We still count those numbers against our trash total on a monthly basis, but the composting is not only better for the environment, but significantly less expensive as well. In the last 6 months, we've been composting more material that we've been sending to landfill. And it's certainly a better story to tell, both inside and outside the organization.
In a few ways, being a part of the initiative to reduce trash has been more personally gratifying, but also personally frustrating. Because when you walk by a trash can and you see there's some dough that should have gone into compost instead of this trash can, you get a little mad. You know, you get a little upset about it, and yeah, you get to the point where you make sure that it doesn't happen again, right? So it's always where you know that there's a moment where you could do more, and you can do more.
Overall, we've eliminated nearly 1 million pounds of trash on an annual basis. I'm going to say that again. Overall, in the last 3 years, we've
I'm not sure what's happened. I think I've lost.
Just give me a minute.
Okay, so folks who are watching, we're gonna get the video. Somehow we hit some kind of a technical snag. So we'll pick up the video where we left off. Just hang in there.
and corrugated recycling, and we've built that program to redirect nearly 5,000 pounds monthly. And after a lot of effort, we found a composting partner that helps us compost nearly 25,000 pounds a month. We still count those numbers against our trash total on a monthly basis, but the composting is not only better for the environment, but significantly less expensive as well. In the last 6 months, we've been composting more material that we've been sending to landfill. And it's certainly a better story to tell, both inside and outside the organization.
In a few ways, being a part of the initiative to reduce trash has been more personally gratifying, but also personally frustrating. Because when you walk by a trash can and you see there's some dough that should have gone into compost instead of this trash can, you get a little mad. You know, you get a little upset about it, and yeah, you get to the point where you make sure that it doesn't happen again, right? So it's always where you know that there's a moment where you could do more, and you can do more.
Overall, we've eliminated nearly 1 million pounds of trash on an annual basis. I'm going to say that again. Overall, in the last 3 years, we've eliminated nearly 1 million pounds of trash annually. For those of us that take out the trash, if the average bin weighs about 75 pounds, that's 13,333 less trips to the dumpster. And since we all take it out, we all certainly recognize that. We recognize that we have a long way to go. The goal is zero waste. But the big win is that everybody is acting differently because we are measuring and managing our trash. I'm going to say that again too. The big win is that everybody is acting differently because we are measuring and managing our trash.
It made me feel like we moving, you know, like it's a process that we continue, like developing, it's always an opportunity to keep growing. It's always an opportunity to save, So now I see it, like a big win. It's like we try to win, and by saving, a lot of money. We're recycling some of the dough, and we're reusing some of the dough through some of the breads that we make. We're actually doing great. I mean, as far as that goes, compared to the older 5 years ago, was no way near where we are right now.
Yeah, that was really a big selling point for me when I started working here. I was like, I really love this place. You care about what trash you're putting out in the world, be it physical landfill waste, be it emissions. Like, this place cares about what kind of impact it has on the world around it. Not just trying to sell as much of the product as it possibly can. No, it wants to actually make the world better.
People want to be involved in that. They want to work somewhere where you actually care about it and everybody's engaged about it. And if we have a great week, we talk about it. If we have a bad week, we talk about it. And it's really important to be transparent.
I would like to see zero trash. Whatever we can do to completely reduce the trash number down to zero. I mean, I understand there's little things here and there that have to get put away, but why not shoot for the stars? Because we have the opportunity now, and we have people and bakers on the floor that are engaged with the everyday conversations.
The bakers are more involved in their job now, and they seem to be having more of a purpose. It makes you feel good to be part of something like that, and it kind of makes me want to think, what else can we do to reduce the trash number?
Because you can do better, and you want to do better. And then it's just trying to figure out how do you work through others to make that happen each day.
We have a weekly team meeting out on the production floor. We flash the lights and we yell team meeting, and we all get together and we do a trash talk, and we get our trash numbers because we weigh our trash, we weigh our compost.
On a day-to-day activity, we can throw away a bag. The baker comes up to me and says, "Isn't this ridiculous? Can't we figure out another solution?" And then I say, of course we can. So what can we do to look and dial in on that bag to make sure that that one doesn't get thrown in the trash? Or it's the bigger picture overall, is making sure that don't just walk past something. There's always more of an opportunity that we can see. And I think that if I show that and I engage in those conversations every day, then I get those ideas along with everybody else and along with the rest of the team.
And we work as a pretty big team. It's not that we always get to work with the same people each day. Our team is 24 hours a day. So trying to figure out which person to kind of motivate and kind of coach through to get that better bread the next day is kind of a nice challenge. And then when it happens, it's pretty awesome because you don't have to worry about that one again.
You don't make 30,000 pounds of dough a day by being a one-man show, right? It's team, and we all come together, and it's really amazing the ideas that folks come together and they say, hey, if we do this, this is how we'll win, or if we recycle this way, or if we save this, how can we win? How can we be better? How can we find a solution? That's how we'll all come together and achieve those results. And we're just really fortunate, like the companions that we have here, everybody cares, and that's how we win on a daily basis.
Look, measuring and managing your trash will certainly save you money. And I hope it goes a long way towards saving the planet. But most importantly, it will change your people. And if you change your people, you change everything. How do we move forward? Sustainability is certainly a constant battle. You heard our folks talk about zero waste, and that's certainly our goal. We are super eager to keep driving forward and simply be better than yesterday. But we believe that reducing, reusing, and recycling is the most sustainable way. That's all happening here at Companion. I know things are difficult right now. Staying focused on the things you can control is the key to surviving, whether it's a cash crunch or a global pandemic. Our trash initiative has been our anchor for the past 3 years. I can't help but wonder What would change inside of your business if you started measuring and managing your trash? We believe it can change everything.
That was fantastic. Josh, thank you so much for putting that together. It was so well done, first of all. So congratulations to you and your team for doing that. But the message itself, of course, is the key. And, we're already starting to get some notes from people who are watching about how inspirational it is. Welcome, by the way. Thank you. Welcome to the symposium. Before we throw it open to questions and stuff, having seen it again now with fresh eyes, anything that you'd like to add to what we just saw?
No, I mean, what you talked about is really true. I think it was such a cool experience to do it with our team and to give our folks an opportunity to sort of participate in that. And honestly, to hear the impact that the initiative has had on folks was super inspiring to me. We sort of gave them a little bit of information in advance of filming. The folks that shared something, this is the one piece of change that we want you to talk about. And then we threw some kind of open-ended questions at them while we had them with a microphone on, and they weren't prepared for it. What's been the pride that's been instilled, or how's it meant to you? And it was really very inspiring and moving for me to hear that response, because you don't tend to ask those questions every day of your folks. And it was really great to see that as financially impactful as the initiative has had, it's been so much more than that in the end.
Yeah, I think a couple of takeaways for me. I made notes of a few things, like when you talked about those three objectives: the financial, the emotional, and the environmental impact of this process. In some respects, you could say that some of them were maybe at the beginning unanticipated benefits, but because who would know what kind of an emotional uplift this would be for the team, and how great it would be for morale, for people to feel like they're part of a bigger solution.
I think more than anything, it was not realizing how impactful the generation of waste was to people when things weren't going very well. So I think it was truly kind of understanding that how disheartening it was to nurture a loaf of bread and have it end up in the trash, right? Like we all make bread and we all make mistakes. But when you're seeing this huge volume of that, when we moved in and trying to learn the cadence of a new facility and learn some new equipment and sort of, kind of coming out of an older shop, we had a lot of confidence because we knew what we were doing in that old shop, and we made nice product and generally didn't make very many mistakes. And then all of a sudden we kind of make this big leap into this next step, and we just cannot for the life of us figure it out. And it was really demoralizing. It was for me, and I don't think I really gave much appreciation to how demoralizing it was for everybody until we fixed it, until we started to come out of the other side of it and celebrate on a monthly basis. This is how many pounds last month, and kind of looking at it as a trend and really getting a feel for, wow, I think this thing's going to have a greater emotional benefit than it is financial or environmental. And those two benefits are huge, but the emotional one has been even larger, which was, look, I mean, it stemmed from the bank really potentially calling the loan, right? Like I don't know how close we ever got to that moment, but they brought in some folks into that meeting that I had never met before, and they generally only bring them in when things are going pretty poorly. And so it was a different scenario. And so the initiative certainly grew out of having to fix that problem. And my grandfather, always reminded me that a penny saved is greater than a penny earned. And so we certainly did it for those reasons. But in the end, it's the impact has been so much greater than that.
I guess it must be great for the bank to know that they, by requiring more rigor, that they were part of the solution as well. Have they had a chance to join in a little bit in the victory dance here?
No question about it. And, I think I mentioned I had to send this cash flow forecast every Sunday night. All they want to see now is the trash numbers. So, and they still want to see them because they've been really overwhelmed. I mean, we had searched for 25 years for like one metric that could sort of tell me the health of the business. And I've never been able to land on it. Like I never really, we tried all kinds of things. We tried different like mini algorithms of taking certain things and trying to come up with like a stock ticker price that I could, I'm growing the value of the business this way. And now, honestly, if we look at two numbers every month, one is just the total pounds of trash that we generated, but then we created this trash efficiency number, which is basically sales divided by pounds of trash. So how many sales dollars are we generating each month per every pound of trash? Because the one thing I didn't want to do was inadvertently incentivize people to send out bad product to our customers in an effort to record less waste. So I wanted to make sure we had some kind of check on quality built into this thing. So the trash efficiency was sort of my way of doing that.
Yeah.
But by moving that, and look, everybody wants to see charts go up and not charts go down. And so pounds of trash goes down. And so trash efficiency, we wanted to have it go up. And that number, you can tell me what that number is. I can tell you what our profitability was. Like it is never, we've never been able to find a number that so clearly mirrors the profitability of the business, which has been super interesting.
It becomes a case study that could be used across the board in any number of industries, not just the baking industry, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you start thinking about, in some of, the service industry, if you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, obviously you can't weigh your trash. I don't know that weighing your trash makes any difference, but waste certainly, if you think about it in terms of the way the Japanese looked at it with lean, waste can be time, waste can be, wasted movement, it can be inventory. There's a lot of things that can be defined as waste. We just happen to have one that you can measure because it's truly things going into the trash bin. But waste as a function of just not something productive really does have a big impact on everything. And it really has made a huge difference in our organization. And we use it in every conversation, what we're going to sell, what ingredients we're going to buy, what containers those things come in. Can we recycle those things? What can we do to not have these things be contributing to our landfill contribution, which look, in the food industry, it's almost embarrassing. My son, who's 12, just did a little presentation in his 7th grade class. It's 33% of the food that we create in this world goes to waste. Like it's just an unbelievable number that doesn't make it from whether it's grown or processed or whatever. We're just wasting so much product. And when you think about it in terms of and that's always kind of as you think about with food going bad in your house, you buy too much food, you don't do your leftovers. It doesn't even, I don't even know, but when you also include the fact that as manufacturers, we bake product that's underweight, overweight, underbaked, overbaked, under fermented, over fermented, all of the ways in which we screw it up. That number is a huge contribution as well. And it was embarrassing. I mean, I think when we really finally got down to it, I was incredibly embarrassed by how much trash we were generating. And that certainly got this whole thing started.
Yeah, and I was watching those numbers come in during the video and I'm thinking, okay, you've got a pretty good sized bakery. There are some bakeries that are even like 10 times more volume than what you're doing. And there's many other bakeries that are about your size. To multiply, if none of them have applied, this new discipline that you've sort of come up with, then the amount of waste that's going out through bakeries industry wide has got to be enormous. And what a difference it could make if some of these, in a sense, this, what would you call it? This, the Marie Kondo thing that you've come up with here to, kind of a formula and a method can be systematized and made available and applied, and I'm wondering if you're getting any calls from any colleagues in the industry asking for some help in implementing similar kinds of fixes.
It's a good question. We haven't broadcasted that much. I think there've been a couple of business articles written about it because we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I mean, this is obviously the first place that we've really kind of come out and kind of told the story. And certainly the creation of the video was sort of our way of documenting it internally to share with our own people and potentially share with customers and vendors, because we obviously need and want their participation in this program as well. So yeah, I mean, I think it's huge. My dad always told me and continues to remind me, what gets measured gets managed. And so I think just raising the awareness internally just had a huge impact, because as soon as we started talking about it, everybody's got ideas, and when we gave folks permission to share those ideas, not permission, but when we started talking about it and they realized that it was something that was important to us, a lot of folks raised their hand and said, hey, I see this happening. I see this happening. Let's fix this. Why are we doing this? And it continues to this day. I mean, all of those things. We're working with a manufacturer who's willing to recycle the blue gloves that we wear in the manufacturing process. And obviously, especially with COVID, you see all the plastic gloves that are being used in all kinds of food preparation and food, and all those for the most part are going to landfill. You know, we've got a couple of bakers who have kind of taken it upon themselves to figure out, how can we recycle those, or how can we get those back? And we found a manufacturer who, if we change to using their gloves, they'll take them back and reuse them in the manufacturing process. And so, you know, all of those things are constantly happening, and it's really inspiring to recognize that everybody, it's such an easy message to explain to people, right? We just want to throw away less stuff. So help us figure out how to do that. And folks are helping us find that every day.
I love that quote. We should create some kind of a book of sayings from our fathers that, you know, that have stuck with us, that are like the wisdom of previous generations. So what can be measured can be managed. Was that the quote?
Right.
It's a great quote. It reminded me of something that happened to me back when I had I had a restaurant, cafe, bakery thing in California, and every week the salesman would come in to sell us canned goods and things like that. And he would come in, a very friendly guy, really good salesman, because, you know, he spent most of the time just socializing with us and then make a sale at the end. And he would ask, every time he'd come in, he'd look around. This was like in the first year of operation, and about 6 months, 8 months into it, he'd look around and he'd go, boy, the energy in here feels, you know, really good. You guys doing okay? And I said, yeah, things are going well. He said, good. And then one day he came in and he said, I think going all right. The energy feels a little different. And I said, what are you talking about? When you say the energy, you know, what do you mean? And he said, when I go into an operating, almost all businesses, when they come out of the gate, they're fresh, they're new, and, you know, everyone's happy. And then sooner or later, you know, the honeymoon's over and you start to hit the wall and things start to happen. And the first thing I look for is, are there any light bulbs that have gone out that have not been changed? He said, because when I see that, that's an indication to me that people are starting to fatigue. And when people fatigue, things start to go downhill. And, you know, there was one of those like moments where it stuck with me. And every week we'd look up before he even came in, knowing he was coming in, we'd say, how are the light bulbs looking, you know? And I think these kinds of little things add up to big things, as, you know, as your presentation, you know, really shows. So I just think that's very cool. And I think, you know, maybe a key takeaway for everybody who's watching today is what can be measured can be managed. Because as soon as you applied that principle to what you were doing, suddenly everything changed for you guys.
Yeah, look, I think anytime the owner of a business calls attention to something on a regular basis and keeps coming back to it and keep talking about it and keeps mentioning how important it is to them, then I think folks in general they want to do better with whatever it is we're paying attention to. And so, you know, that quote and that expression is really about, look, if we're going to measure, if we're taking the energy to measure it and pay attention, then it's going to get fixed, and it's going to get, and people are going to try to come up with ways to make it better. And that certainly is the case. That certainly has been the case with this.
A consultant I met with about the same time when I had my business and I was struggling with, you know, how to make it more profitable. You know, he told me that, he says, once you start the process of asking the questions of how can I make it better, you're already making it better. He said it's measurable. He said that even before you put the changes into place, the intent to make it better already starts a process, and then it just gets better and better. And I think you said something similar earlier about you know, putting attention on this and you know, making a decision to act upon it is again another part of that sort of process that seems to be like the beginning of a small snowball kind of beginning to roll downhill.
Yeah, and not all of them necessarily are financial. Like some of the decisions, it's interesting. We realized pretty quickly when we started paying attention that we had made a couple of decisions that had inadvertently created a culture of indifference toward waste. And one of the things that we talk about a lot here is towels was one of those things. When we first moved into the into the new factory, we had a company came to us and they said, look, we can sell you scrap towels and we can sell you recycled t-shirts that you can use for instead of towels, and they're half the price of like renting and laundering towels from your cleaning service that we were doing. So these, I think they were like 9 cents a piece versus the 25 cents it cost to have your laundry service, you know, to rent towels basically on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
And that seemed like kind of a no-brainer, right? Like, why wouldn't we go from 25 cents down to 9 cents? And what we didn't really appreciate was that a lot of our bakers are, you know, first generation out of poverty or first generation with a full-time job. And the idea, and these scrap towels they weren't durable enough to be laundered. They were truly scraps. And so you'd use them once and then you'd throw them away. And obviously it was a lot of weight, you know, in terms of how much, because they were picking up oil or flour or picking up a spill, and that would go into the trash. But it was just this kind of idea, such a wasteful idea. Like at home, I don't throw away towels. Like, who does that? And
Mhm.
here we were as a business kind of encouraging folks to throw these things away. And when we kind of challenged everybody to think differently about what we were doing, that was like the loudest response that we got. It's like, what in the hell are we doing with these towels? We need to we got to fix that. And so not only though did we go back to, we didn't go all the way back to renting and laundering them. We said, look, what's the right way to do this? And so we bought a commercial washer and dryer. We bought high quality towels and we started doing it ourselves. And I think the idea that even in a cash crunch, we were going to invest in a washer dryer, we were going to invest in a process to fix the waste, really sent a message to people like, okay, he's serious about this stuff. Obviously, we're willing to invest in it and fix it. And that was sort of the big hard stop that we kind of started with. And that really built a lot of momentum for folks, because that was a huge one that people were looking at every day. And we didn't really think, you know, it just didn't register to us how negatively impactful that decision was, even though it might have made sense financially.
That is really interesting. Another thing that jumped off, you know, from the presentation to me was the idea that the team is now becoming so much more sensitized to this. It wasn't just the management, you know, insight. It's filtering down to the whole team, that everyone is becoming sensitive to where waste is happening and is becoming part of the solution and not just sort of just going along with the program.
Yeah, I mean, I think as Josh Galliano mentioned in the presentation, you know, it's hard to walk by and see something that should be composted that's in the trash, but it's happening with everything. If we see a particular dough that's running that has way too much trim on one of the Rion lines, people go, hey, how do we do? What can we do better? Can we how do we set the machine up differently? Can we add more rows? Can we run it the opposite direction so that it has no trim? Can we, you know, how can we process this particular item or particular product differently in order to reduce the waste and reduce the impact? Or if we see a whole bunch of out of spec product coming out of the oven on a regular basis, or something's happening with something in makeup that's causing problems, then we address that. Or if something in mixing is causing problems. And it was never part of the conversation. You know, for 22 years, we never talked about stuff like that. And now it's a part of every conversation. Yeah. And it's really fascinating to kind of think about how that's changing. And I think that's, if more than anything, that's what I'm most proud of, because it becomes, even the sales team thinks about it, you know, will this product run with less waste, or will this contribute positively to the impact we're trying to make as it relates to trash, if we add this new item or develop this new product or do something, or what can we develop and sell that would help, you know, like we've been more aggressive about stuffing during the years, because we can take our trim off of certain doughs and run them back through and make stuffing out of them. And we've developed a whole line of bread puddings that are somewhat a basis of some of the trim and reusing of waste. And it's been really kind of fascinating to kind of watch that evolution happen, because it's part of everyday conversations now.
Interesting. Speaking of compost, somebody wrote in, the idea to compost the trash is wonderful. I'm wondering what kinds of trash to compost and how you deal with the resulting compost. So are you doing the composting right there or sending it out to compost?
No, we're exploring that. Currently, we have a partner that picks up. So they dry. I don't know if you saw the yellow bins that were in the video, but they drop off those bins and then we fill them up and then they come back. And I'll tell you, to be quite honest, dough has been a really challenging aspect of it. They can compost dough, but you know, it fills up the bins pretty, you know, because it doubles in size when you put it in the bin. So we're actually looking at making a transition to actually baking it off so that we can like maybe at the end of the night, we'll run all of our scrap dough and just bake it in pans like big sheets of focaccia, basically, with all the scrap, because then we can compost it and control it a little bit better. There's hammer mills out there that you can grind it up. There's different ways that you can do things. Obviously, there's great technology to actually take extra baked product and create a slurry and go back into your mixing. It's very difficult when we're our size because we do all these different small batches of different products and we have the allergen separation and the ingredient declaration. So we can't really take it back into doughs. But we've done a little bit of that with some dough trim. We've been able to develop products that use maybe the trim from one of our more popular items that generates a high volume of trim or excess in the makeup process. And we've developed a hoagie for a pizza chain using that trim dough as the basis for the mix, and instead of a pre-ferment or in lieu of a pre-ferment. And so we're kind of trying to figure it out. But in general, fully baked product that's out of spec, or dough that we can't reuse, or anything that drops on the floor, everything that we sweep off the floor, all of those organic materials can be composted. And so they're picking that up. I think we have 3-day-a-week pickup, and they're struggling sometimes, with labor like everybody else is. So sometimes they can't get there. So we've explored doing our own. We're doing our own composting on site. We've looked at anaerobic digesters that sort of, we're exploring a project that we could potentially do that and create the methane gas to fire our ovens with, to potentially keep it full circle. I'm really inspired by what Dan's doing at Bread Alone with this kind of climate neutral bakery, and maybe we can do it with the gas created from the compost. And clearly the goal is to not create the waste in the first place. So that's where we put the majority of our energy. But once we create it, then it's how can we be the most responsible with that excess that we've created. So there are in a lot of cities, though, there are services that go around to restaurants and pick up compost, pick up kitchen scraps and do all of that. And that's the folks that we've partnered with to do it currently. But sometimes we create more than they can handle. And so we've got to try to figure out other ways to deal with it.
Before we run out of time, a couple of questions have come in, and then we'll continue the conversation at the after party. But first of all, Runner is giving us the last few questions here. Says, I love the statement, "We wear our trash." So was that in the video? We wear our trash? Did I see that?
One of our Nancy, who does our cultural development, she mentioned them, and that was sort of what she said. And we sort of wear it on our sleeve, that it becomes a big part of who we are, and really how we identify with our own success now, which is a piece of it. Look, we still got to make great bread. We still got to sell great bread. It doesn't change that at all. But how responsibly we can be in the manufacturing of that does mean a lot to us now. And we certainly didn't go into this feeling that way. Look, we were just trying to fix a cash flow problem. I don't want to pretend like there was some altruistic approach to this. It's just been so rewarding and cool that it has evolved into that.
It's really better when it works that way, when the grace notes that come in with from the original intent. He continues by asking, how are you managing trash at the cafes? You still have companion cafes?
We do. The one cafe we have inside the facility, so we're composting, table scraps and things like that. And they're part of our composting program here. We haven't quite got there with our other location yet. I mean, we got a long way to go with a lot of things, and we need to figure out how to do better with that as well.
But the thing is the process has begun, and now people aren't going to be able to rest until they find solutions to some of these other things. He wants to know, did you have to reduce the number of SKUs to reduce waste? Excuse.
That's certainly been a part of it. I think certainly the variety is sort of it can be an evil as it relates to those things. And so the fewer number of SKUs that we create, obviously, the more efficient we can be. But we're still, our niche is still customized products, and it's still a lot of private label stuff. So in general, I would say the SKU reduction that we've had in the last year has probably been more a function of the labor challenge than it's been about reducing waste. But we're still focused on developing new products, because that's how we're going to grow our business. I mean, we are, in the scheme of things, we're very small. We produce about 5,000 cases a week, and our competition in the frozen business is producing 250,000 cases a week. So, the only way we survive is small batch customized products and trying to find partners with, like 50 to 150 locations that need something special. That's who we're focused on.
Yeah, in fact, I remember on your website, the focus on the website being that you work with your clients to customize for them what they need, rather than give them a finite set of menu items that they have to choose from, but you work with them to give them something that meets their specific need, which is something you can do at your size, not so easy to do when you're a battleship.
Right. No, I mean, our whole focus is helping our customers tell their story. We have a handful of items that we sell under our brand, and that's certainly our story to tell. But in general, if Peter has 50 delis, you have a story to tell, and we want to help you tell that story through whatever way that we can help you get there.
All right, I'm going to go out on this one because this is really interesting timing. So Runner comes full circle and he says, this would be a great TED Talk. Thank you.
It's funny that you say that.
Yeah. Why don't you let's wrap this one up by telling us where TED Talk fits into this.
So I think you and I talked last week. I'll be presenting at TEDx St. Louis in December, really about this, and less about the specifics in the bakery, because the audience for TED is not necessarily, they could care less how we necessarily save the trash, but more about the cultural shift and the real impact to the business and how we reignited the passions of our people, and we're really able to make a huge change to the organization and how we think and manage ourselves through this initiative. And it's been really cool. And I think, to your point, I think it has a lesson for a lot of different kinds of businesses, and that's certainly the hope.
Yeah, there's a lot of universals in what you kind of came to in your situation that can be applied. So Josh, I want to thank you again for a great presentation, for a great video, which hopefully you'll be able to use in many different applications. And I look forward to seeing your TEDx talk. I'm just going to say TED Talk because the TEDx is what's going on in St. Louis, but it's TED. That's a platform. That's a great platform, and not everybody gets to do one of those. So I imagine you're going to be hearing from people. But this is the secret, I think, to getting asked to do a TED Talk, is to have a message that does have universal, application, that it's not just about how I solve my bread waste problem, but how solving this problem can change your life as well. And so congratulations on that. That's really cool. I expect.
Thank you. And like I alluded to in the presentation, I just want to thank you for including me. I think there was, I certainly am not a celebrity baker as it relates to some of the great folks that you had all throughout the year with the symposium. So it's nice that you included the everyman in at least 1 week of this thing.
Well, thank you, but of course, in my small world, you are a celebrity baker. You've done amazing things, and even to be still at the helm after 23 years, more than
28 now.
28 years, that's right. Yeah. 23 years since you and I first met, but 28 years, even that is a tremendous achievement. And watching how you've grown your company and taking the leaps, the risks, and solving problems, I think it's inspirational. So, again, thank you. You're one of my heroes. But let's continue this conversation. We'll get everybody. There's a few people, not everybody who's watching right now will be joining us because they don't have the VIP ticket, but the ones who do will continue on in what we call our after party. So you and I will log out of this webinar and we'll log back in on the other link that we have. And those who are watching can migrate over to the VIP lounge. And why don't we take a 3-minute break, and we'll reconnect over in the VIP lounge for the after party.
Terrific. Thanks again,
Peter.
Peter.
You join us next Monday for our final presentation. Dave Dahl, from the founder of Dave's Killer Breads, is going to tell us the whole story. As he said, my life's an open book, warts and all. I'm going to share it with you. So join us next week, everybody else. And Josh, I'll see you in a couple minutes in the lounge.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thank you to our team behind the scenes. Our event technical and production partners, Ganoid Communications, including our producer, Gurmit Singh, and his team, Jida Gajaria, Gagandeep Singh, and Jaydev Kashari. Thanks also to Ted Nelson and Lael Fretzel of our creative and marketing team at Gumbo Marketing, and the many folks at Johnson & Wales University who supported me throughout this event. My executive assistant, Sarah Standifer, communications director, Melinda Law, Chancellor Mim Rooney, Charlotte Campus President, Cheryl Richards, and our executive team leaders, deans and faculty, Maureen Dumas, Michael Schrader, Michelle Nicholas, Mark Norman, Brent Steyerwalt, Laurie Heinbach, Jerry Lanuza, Amy Felder, Harry Paymiller, Richard Miskovich, and many, many others. Thank you all.